Can you tell me a story? My head just hit the pillow when my 6-year-old daughter asked me the same question every single night. I was so sleepy. All that I could think of was bed. So I told her, okay, I'm going to tell you 5 stories of my life that happens on 5 beds. The first story, the first bed, is my childhood bed. It's the bed where my mom and I would cuddle every night, and she would tell me bedtime stories. But my mom was always so exhausted after a long working day that she would always tell me incoherent stories. And I would always correct her. Hey, Mommy, it's not right. The person you talk about now already died. How come she came back to life? Little did I know at that time that people we thought were gone can and do come back. The second bed was a deathbed. 19-year-old me was lying in an operation bed, legs wide open. It's done. You can get up and go now, the doctor said. 1 month before this, I was a sophomore on the top university in China, and I've just been elected as the president for the biggest association in college. I also started my first love affair ever with an English lawyer. For the first time in my life, I invited a man between my legs and had wild, ecstatic sex, in the heat of which I unconsciously created a baby. This man, who asked me to marry him a few weeks ago, never saw me again since he knew I was pregnant. I stumbled out of the operation room into the arms of my mom, who was trying to hold her tears back. I know something between my legs has changed forever. I went from top student to scandal. A shame for my family and my community. However, as my good girl mask got torn up with my yoni that got torn in the abortion, the old me died with my baby, and the new me was coming into being. So I ran away from classrooms into the wild, into my wildness, to find myself and to heal. I started doing yoga and qigong daily. I went to nature adventure clubs. I became a vegan. I left my promising career opportunities in China and went to Europe in search of new landscape, new lifestyle, new identity. People said, sometimes you have to leave in order to come back. After 5 years of world travel, I came back to China, the land where I was born. And I found myself on the third bed. 24-year-old me, lying on a small bed at home, legs wide open again. Only this time, to give birth to my baby girl. It's 7 long hours after my water broke. I've done everything the midwife told me to do. I held onto the thigh of my husband and the bed. I groaned, I pushed. I was exhausted. My baby was not coming. My husband and my friends who had been cheering me on for the last 7 hours had now become quiet. It's too long. She needs to be taken to the hospital, the midwife said. All my life, I've shut myself down, swallowed, digested, and accepted everything. But at this moment, I knew if I don't speak up, there's no way I can birth this baby. I would die in the hospital. So I finally had the courage to say, I don't think the midwife's way works for me. A woman came to my ears and she said, if so, just do it your way. I felt blood rush back to my veins again, but I felt still weak. So I asked with the last ounce of energy I still had, could you please give me some encouragement? And now they all went, you are doing great, you are amazing, I can see the baby's head already. I took a long, deep breath and one last roar. It felt like the biggest poop of my life just got squeezed out of my yoni. And there was my baby. Only she's shining like gold and she smells great. I'm so happy that I gave a much better birth to my baby than my mom to me. My mom had such a traumatic birth experience of me that she thought I would go through exactly the same. Looks like I defied her prophecy. But soon I realized I was married to a man who was exactly like my dad. Abusive, violent, dependent on me for money, gave me sexual trauma, and that made me feel worse than a prostitute in my own marriage. I was determined not to repeat the history of my mom. So I left my husband, my job, my house, everything I have in China, again, and went to Europe to heal myself. In the worst days in Europe, I was picking up horse shit for $10 per hour, one arm with my baby, sucking my breast. And I remember 5 years ago, I was the top student in Cambridge, hanging out with Oxford and Harvard friends who got $1 million job offer right after graduation. And now here I am, jobless, penniless, homeless, single mom. I was the most unattractive woman I knew until I met Barack. I was pouring my heart out desperately on the piano in the museum when Barack, a single dad from Turkey, walked in with his son and saw me. 2 months later, we were in bed in his flat, having the most epic, savage, cathartic sex of our lives. I was having mind-blowing, heart and ass opening, bed rattling, neighbors complaining, and soul-stretching liquid explosion of orgasms of my life. In that worst period of my life, outside of that bed of orgasm, I felt totally worthless, ugly, smelly piece of shit. But Barack, he fucked the shit out of me. He penetrated me to the core and unleashed that lioness that's been sleeping there all along. And he told me, "You gave me the best sex in my life." And only later I knew that from friends that actually every man said that to every woman. But I chose to believe him. And I thought, maybe I'm really good at this. So I got out of bed, went into my desk, and wrote down every single detail of the orgasms and pains of my yoni. I shared it on social media. Now, this is such a taboo in China that it went viral very soon. So I created my holistic sexuality course for women in China. And in 1 year, I went from 0 to my first 1,000 clients, from 0 to my first 6 figures. I got to TV, newspaper, magazine. My business was growing wild, like my baby. But my relationship with men is, I wouldn't say a contrast to my business success, but it's like sex. It's in, out, in, out. I really want to stay in longer, but I'm mostly out. And one night, after yet another devastating breakup, instead of just looking on Tinder for another guy to give me some love, I called my mom. "Mom, can you tell me your story of your yoni?" My mom told me everything. Her yoni, her mom's yoni, her love stories, her pains. With tears and a lot of joy. Because finally, someone cares. We became friends again. I teach her yoga, dance, couch surfing, and BDSM. She came to my tantric classes in Women's Temple. And with my help, 10 years after the day she was almost bitten to death by my dad, she found the love of her life, who was a Danish hippie. And they just celebrated their 4th wedding anniversary. My last bed is the bed in the very beginning of my talk, where my daughter and I would cuddle and tell bedtime stories. So she asked me to tell her a story, and I told her the story I told you tonight. And when she heard the part about my first baby who died in the abortion, guess what she said? "Mommy, that was me." So 25 years after the incoherent bedtime stories of my mom, I finally realized that people that we thought were gone can and do come back. And my yoni, which has been the greatest source of shame and pain in my life, has now become the greatest source of power that created a baby, created a multi-6-figure income, a business that get a lot of yonis well fucked by life, and a time location free lives here in paradise Bali, which is exactly the life I dreamed of 5 years ago when I was picking up horse shit. So, my shit has become my gold. My greatest pain has become my greatest power. So can yours.